Love podcasts, hate nonsense. It's the PoliticsJOE podcast, ladies and gentlemen.
Woo!
Another day, another podcast.
Another non-hatred heavy week.
Looking forward to talking about grooming gangs with both of you again.
Mm-hmm.
Are you cold today?
Yeah, I'm freezing.
That looks like a bit of a chilly outfit.
It is cold in here.
It's
right
cold
now.
in the studio.
Yeah. You know, Laura really hasn't been cold at all. Up until, like, a couple of days ago, she was still wearing, like, what I would describe as autumn wear. And she said that she doesn't feel the cold.
What winter wear has she been wearing?
Well, she's got a North Face on today.
Right.
But it's not that thick.
I wouldn't care to comment on what Laura does or doesn't wear in the office.
Right.
Well, you make a habit of this. First time for everything.
Is it because you don't want to acknowledge her?
I prefer to keep it to our separate WhatsApp group.
Right.
Oh, God. That's so horrible.
That's the one where we post all the fish as well, isn't it?
Yeah, fish talk.
Does that still happen?
Hasn't for a while, but I suspect it might be reinvigorated.
Yeah, that's good. It's nice to have a hobby.
How are the fish, Laura?
Very well. Shall we just plough head first into this, yeah?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roll the clip.
Mr. Speaker, I'm shocked that the Prime Minister would say that actions were not taken. He knows full well that we accepted 18. He knows full well that we accepted 18 of the 20 recommendations in the J inquiry and went further, launching a gangs task force that found 550 more perpetrators. That shows that there is still work to be done. In Rotherham alone, there have been over 1,400 victims. Across Oldham, Bradford, Bristol, Rochdale, and dozens more towns, there have been thousands more victims. But no one has joined the dots. No one has the total picture. And it is almost certainly still going on. One victim from Telford, and I know he says that victims have different views. We have different views across this house. But one victim from Telford says she wants a national inquiry because it will hold people accountable in a way that previous inquiries have not. It is very possible to have actions, take on more, and still have a national inquiry. So why won't he listen to victims and launch a national inquiry which would have the power to summon witnesses and make them give evidence under oath?
Mr. Speaker, she says they accepted the recommendations. They didn't act on them. One of the central recommendations was mandatory reporting, and it still hasn't been enacted. I called for this 11 years ago. They've been tweeting and talking. We've been acting. Well, Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition has been an MP, I think, for 8 years. Her party have been in government for 7.5 of those 8 years. She was the Children's Minister. She was the Women's and Equalities Minister. I can't remember her, I can't recall her once raising this issue in the House, once calling for a national inquiry. It's only in recent days she's jumped on the bandwagon. Now, Mr. Speaker, in fairness, if I'm wrong about that, and she has raised it, then I invite her to say that now, and I will happily withdraw the remark that she hasn't raised it in this House in the 8 years that she's been here until today.
Has Kemi Baden not got a point? What did you think of Keir Starmer's response?
Well, all of it's rather ugly, isn't it?
It's really gross.
I don't think that anyone is point scoring or has scored points because, well, the opposing team in this are children who were raped. So I don't really think that that's like a winning match.
Yeah.
But there is a point about Kemi Badenoch not raising this in Parliament in the 8 years that she has been present. We did a cursory search, didn't we, of Hansard, which is how everything is documented. Whatever's said in the House of Commons chamber, it's documented on Hansard. And we did a wide-ranging search. Kemi Badenoch, Rochdale, Rotherham, Oldham, grooming gangs, child exploitation, rape gangs. I actually even went for abuse at one point. Nothing.
I'll talk about both of those things. I also felt quite sick watching this session of Prime Minister's Questions, and I get it's what they do. You know, they grandstand on the issue of the day and try and attack each other's political positions on it. I understand that is essentially what politics is. And I thought what Starmer did was quite clever. The whole, I will immediately stand up and correct the record if she if she tells me that she has actually raised this before, it's a clever little device. But at the same time, I was sort of looking at it going, I don't want clever little devices when it comes to this issue and this scandal. But I don't. Is it you know? Could I ever expect them to not talk about this? Given the week that we've had, given the start of the year that we had, I don't think we could. So maybe it's just the manner in which Badenoch has pursued the questioning over it. Maybe it's just the posturing around the amendment they're putting down to this bill later on. I don't know. I didn't like it.
But it's been the tone of the entire discussion has been political opportunism. It's not. I don't think you can say this debate or the discourse around this has been conducted in good faith. It's not like the point I think needs to keep being made. The reason we're talking about this is that Elon Musk learned about it. Nothing new came out. Yeah. Oh, excuse me. Actually, that isn't true. Jess Phillips did turn down that investigation and that was reported. And then Elon Musk learned about it, and that's why we're talking about it. It's ugly, and the Conservatives and other politicians are going about it in an ugly way. I don't think what could Starmer do that isn't also underhand. I appreciate that it's informing the ugliness, but like it's an ugly situation, and they're going to behave in an ugly way. And you saw actually immediately after Prime Minister's questions, the Conservatives released that graphic of it was Keir Starmer doesn't want to investigate rape gangs or grooming gangs, and it does make you feel sick that they're reducing such a complicated, horrendous issue into something with which to score political points. And it's the point Ava made on Monday, is that the victims are not at the heart of this.
I do want to circle back to why neither Badenoch or Jenrick has mentioned it before in the Commons, and what that can tell us about it, tell us about this issue, tell us about the direction of travel of the Conservative Party, perhaps. But I do think there's something to be said, isn't there, about Starmer, because they're just wrong. You know, like, he has received personal commendation for the way in which, as Director of Public Prosecutions, he went about investigating and prosecuting these cases. Nazir Afzal has talked about Starmer's role in particular about it, and a lot of the reports into it have commended him on a personal level. I just don't think I feel like they're barking up the wrong tree, basically, in sort of like going after him on a personal level about it. And particularly in the context of the press conference earlier the question when he was answering reporters' questions earlier this week, and he was asked about Musk, and he gave that sort of relatively lengthy answer, which I would say is probably the first time. I don't know whether his answer was scripted or not, or how well rehearsed it was, but it felt for me, for the first time, he was communicating from the heart, basically, rather than doing something that feels quite focus grouped, feels quite forced. He managed to convince me that the way he was answering the question, because he essentially came out swinging. And I know he got some negative front pages, for example, the Telegraph, saying that anyone who cared about the grooming gangs was jumping on the far right bandwagon, which is not.
Actually, it was worse than that, wasn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, I thought off the back of that, he could come to PMQs today, and if he was able to sort of continue that sense of sincerity or that style of communication, that you could possibly then go, do you know what, actually, this is the moment that Keir Starmer sort of assumed the role of Prime Minister, or sort of grew into it, and that, it's possibly a turning point in his Prime Ministership. But I'm not sure that this session of Prime Minister's questions you could come to that conclusion.
Particularly as you look at the next steps for, well, in their eyes, rectifying the wrongs of the grooming gangs, is to sort of more siphon or sort of squeeze in extra legislation or some of the recommendations from the report into this children's wellbeing and schools bill that was going to see its second reading in the Commons later. And their argument is that actually this is going to fast track greater protections for children, when it quite clearly is a debate that needs to be had in isolation. It needs to be something that's not just a subsection of a bill, but is possibly a bill in of itself.
They're showing their arse. I think they are showing how opportunistic this entire thing is. If you were serious about wanting an investigation into this, you wouldn't just add it on to this bill about an unrelated issue.
I didn't mean that. Sorry, I meant Starmer was wrong.
Oh, sorry, excuse me.
There. But you're right on that point.
But on that point as well, like,
I felt that way
like,
when
you'd be using your time as an opposition day debate to put a bill about this.
Yeah.
It would be a longer term project than fucking 4 days.
Yeah, and I felt that way on Monday when I think Yvette Cooper, I think it was either Home Office questions or something like that, and she said that evening, "Oh, we're going to make mandatory reporting law," and it was also obviously Starmer said so as well earlier that day. And it did feel opportunistic. It felt like they were being pushed by events to doing the thing or making the announcement about the thing, regardless of the fact that Starmer called for it 11 years ago. I got that feeling as well. Yeah, I heard that as well.
Wow.
We need to start letting Laura take lunch. This is crazy.
Yeah.
Lunch breaks for Laura.
One every fortnight. I think that sounds fair.
Yeah, I say so.
What I think this Prime Minister's question showed actually about the Tories tactically laughing at Laura.
Yeah, I'll stop. Sorry, this is very serious. I'll stop.
What is clear from this period or this session of Prime Minister's questions is you said that the Tories are barking up the wrong tree. They're not barking up the wrong tree if mud sticks. If they're trying to go after the Prime Minister and present him as some sort of nonce protector, and then the very last questions of Prime Minister's questions was Roger Gale stood up and said, why did you decline to prosecute Mohammed Al-Fayed? And Starmer stood up and said, it never crossed my desk. But that seed is planted. That's another someone like a sexual deviant. That they're alleging that Starmer has protected.
Johnson did it with Jimmy Savile. Yeah.
It's gross and it's ugly, but I think it could work.
Okay, so let's talk about it then. The point you've just made, in context of the fact that Kemi Badenoch hasn't raised any of the things that you mentioned earlier in the Commons, that Robert Jenrick earlier this week was able to go on the Today programme and say, I have brought this up time and time again, and Nick Robinson says, well, I can't find any record of you doing it. Why is that the case? Is it because they were ministers in government and it didn't fall under their brief? Is it because discussion of the grooming gangs took place in television studios and on radio rather than in the House of Commons? Is it the case that the Conservative Party has shifted in its politics, and that whereas when the sort of the bile and the racism about British Pakistanis that was happening in relation to these cases was happening outside of Parliament, it was happening in corners of the internet, and it was happening in certain sections of the press, and the Conservative Party didn't want to touch it in the past, but are more comfortable doing so now? Like, what does it...
Too many options, Albane.
I think it's the latter.
Is it just an oversight that they didn't talk about it? I mean, I'm genuinely asking.
But Kemi Badenoch was Women's and Equalities Minister.
I think, and children and family,
and she had quite enough time to continuously raise how upset she was that children were identifying as a cat. You would have thought that
she could make the time for this.
I think it shows as well, like it's the context of the politics on the right outside of the Conservative Party. Mainstream politics on the right has shifted to the right so that conversation about this, you'd have this at a polite dinner party, to turn a phrase. I think like it's 10 years ago it wasn't mainstream on the right to talk about immigrants and Muslims in the way that mainstream figures on the right do now. The language has shifted so much.
It's not about that. It is. I mean, it is. At its heart, it is about a community of Kashmiri Pakistanis who committed atrocious crimes in a network, in these areas. But it's not. But at its heart, it's about paedophilia.
I don't think that's the point they're making.
that is like an innately conservative, something that conservatives really care about. I mean, if you think about like whenever we've had that, I'm going to take this to the real extremes here, but whenever we've had a conversation about death penalty, someone like Priti Patel, who's an advocate for the death penalty, but actually quite a lot of Tory MPs are behind the scenes or behind the curtain, one of those crimes that they would list would be paedophilia.
But I think it's probably my most reactionary opinion. I oppose the death penalty, right? But if I did support it, I think that is probably the crime for which I would call for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think this debate isn't actually... the problem with this debate is it's not about paedophiles. If it was about paedophiles and paedophilia, then why is Robert Jenrick talking about alien cultures?
Yeah.
They're talking about Muslims. They're talking about
immigrants. He's only started talking about that now.
Yeah, but he's not talking about like how wrong paedophiles are and we should kill them. he's talking about there is an innate difference to these people that means that these events are inevitable.
Yeah, that was an absolutely insane tweet from him.
And that wouldn't have been, you could not have a Conservative, imagine during the coalition, a Conservative minister says that. But
then do you think that that's sort of feeding into the kind of what we're offering the right in terms of by not identifying that community, by not talking about them specifically? Because it's not racist to say that this was a group of Kashmiri Pakistanis almost exclusively who committed these crimes, but it is to say that, to describe them as Muslim grooming gangs, because unless you know that this is not a monolith, this is not a homogenous group of people that all act. Because you are Muslim, you're not a paedophile. Sorry, just to make that clear,
Thanks,
in case that hadn't been made clear.
Yeah.
But do you think by not, because the press were so concerned, I actually talked about this yesterday with Jack Symes, who was on here, because the media were worried about giving ammunition to the right, they struggled with properly reporting or accurately reporting.
But was there not other factors, or not other groups, like the police stopped that Channel 4 documentary airing for months? That was the pressure from the police. Like, the Channel 4 wanted to make a documentary about this in 2004, and they made this documentary, and its publication was delayed. Like, you've seen, like, the front page of the Times that Andrew Norfolk did about, like, British Muslim grooming gangs. I don't know if it's the press necessarily in this instance.
But I'm not blaming the press. What I'm saying is I think it was very difficult at that point in time when it was first broken, that story by the Times, to accurately describe this group of people, mainly because at that point in time all of the prosecutions, or a majority of the prosecutions, hadn't taken place, so you didn't have like an ethnic makeup to go off of.
I think Norfolk actually said at the time as well that he initially sort of steered away from the story for the explicit reason that it would provide ammunition to the far right in the UK. Yeah.
But you're right to raise the police, because that is the thing that's underpinning all of this, and it's fascinating that no one in the upper echelons of the commentariat is talking about it. It's the police that are wrong in all of this. That police officer that dropped that girl back after reporting a rape. What are you talking about? Where is he now? Is he still working? Has he got a police pension?
Something that did also show Badenoch's tactics or attitude to being Conservative Party leader was she talked about, I think she said it was like, don't you think people will think there's a cover-up if there's not this investigation? Which is just stoking even greater conspiracy theories.
She's asking for,
It's like, I'm just asking questions. Don't you think there's a cover-up? Yeah. You're dog whistling for the people outside the Conservative Party on the right. You're dog whistling for Elon Musk to be like, great question, Kevin Badenoch. You're my favourite now. I hate Tommy Robinson. You're the girl. It's so clear who she's trying to appeal to.
Isn't it also sort of the point that there were cover-ups? And there were people that didn't take the allegations seriously.
A cover-up.
No, I know.
Which I think is what you can infer from that is a suggestion. It was like a massive organised thing by big Islam or something, like a greater conspiracy. She's not dealing in facts there, and it's the perception. She's not talking about, don't you think there's a cover-up? She's equating people thinking there was a cover-up with a cover-up. And that they're two different things. One's factual, one's not.
Yeah.
And it's just leaning into people's worst instincts in this, and it just makes me feel a bit sick, to be honest.
I suppose the strangest part about all of this is that we're kind of like in the middle of, we're kind of almost in like the eye of the storm of, God, I'm going to sound like so woke nonsense, but we're in the middle of narrative being dragged so far to the extremes that I don't think we've actually been able to sit down and take stock of it yet, because the narrative has been driven so far that actually people who were considered extreme only 6 months ago in this country are now seen as moderate. You're almost arguing that, Nigel Farage is the sensible person in comparison to, because you've got Tommy Robinson and Elon Musk whipping up a frenzy, and he actually seems almost like the centre ground.
Yeah.
A place I don't imagine he's comfortable. Well, he said he doesn't want to be centre ground, does he? He's a reaction. He's on the.
Well, it's funny actually. I think one of your contributors at Reform Party conference, talking about what Nigel said during his speech, said that Nigel was essentially saying our positions on a lot of things are actually the centre ground of British public opinion, and that for sort of the body politic at large, that's where Farage, or at least tells his activists, the Reform Party is. Now, obviously, in the context of parliamentary party politics, Reform is on the right, but that is a rhetorical tool that Farage uses to kind of lend legitimacy to their political positions, right? Is to say, no, actually, we are the centre.
I'm going to say something that's going to get me so much hate in the comments.
Keep going.
One of the things that Nigel said to us was, in that interview, was that you can say a lot of things about me, but I always tell you the truth. And when you think about someone like Yvette Cooper, who is now the Home Office Minister, Secretary of State, before they got into government, their entire line of attack against the incumbent Home Office Minister was essentially to say that they were being xenophobic by not providing safe routes. The moment that they got into government, that narrative completely flipped, and now they're cracking down and there will be no safe routes, and actually we just want to arrest anyone who arrives in the country. That is someone who does not tell you the truth. Nigel has told you right from the beginning what he will do.
I'm going to say it's difficult for the face of the Leave campaign to claim to be the arbiter of truth.
Do you know what? You've done me over there. Do you know
No,
what?
but I take your point though, Ava, that on immigration specifically, you could not accuse him of flip flopping on it. You know, I think I take your point more broadly about whether or not.
Sorry, that was FBP Ed kept jumping out there.
Get back in that box, Ed.
Get back
That's
in
what
that
the
bin.
That's what the E in FBP stands for.
Follow back, pro Ed.
Yeah, I feel like we've taken a lot of time on this clip, and I appreciate it's a pretty
That's all
chunky
we're really talking
issue.
about.
Should we have another one?
Yes.
You sound like what's her name? Who used to
Davina
do?
McCall.
Yeah,
Do you want another
Oh,
one?
do you want another one?
she was so good.
She was what a great presenter.
What?
I think that's a skill we're losing as a country.
Do you know what? What a point in time for television that was.
Who's the newest good presenter on
Winkleman.
television?
Winkleman.
Newest.
Winkleman, yeah. She's
Yeah,
great.
but I
She's
think
been, she's been on telly since the 90s.
no,
Davina
but
been on
she's
telly for
she's doing a good job on the Traitors. I
Yeah,
think.
yeah, definitely.
I'd never seen her like this before. Didn't love her on Strictly. Not that I ever watched it. So that's
I
like,
think she's fun, Strictly.
God, I just love talking shit.
Have you ever
don't
seen
I?
the clip of S Club 7 walking out of the interview with Claudia
Oh,
Winkleman?
she's great in that.
Because
Yeah.
she's just asking, like, don't you get paid properly? and the PR person is like, come out! Out!
No, I'm sorry. Actually, we agreed you weren't going to ask
And
this
it's,
question.
it's a young, fringeless Winkleman.
Fringeless.
Fringeless. It's kind of like a side fringe.
What was it that she said about herself? How she described like how she.
Or something goth. Or
It's
something.
it's like a French man who's like fallen out of bed or something like that. Like,
Is Winkleman a friend of the podcast?
Yeah, I'd say so.
I'd say so.
I rubbed shoulders with her at Wilderness Festival this year.
you?
She was talking about her book, and I was about to
rubbing
go
your
on
shoulders
stage.
onto her.
Yeah, and I was following her round,
You were reading it over her shoulder.
and so we were both getting a drink in the
Wow.
VIP area. Yeah,
Wow.
From the trough.
yeah.
The slop.
Let's move on.
Excellent.
Roll the clip.
While the honourable member for Clacton may miss out on his big allowance from Elon Musk, the spectre of the richest man in the world trying to buy a British political party should give us all pause for thought. And after years of the Conservatives taking millions in pounds of Russian money, will the Prime Minister now work with us to bring in long overdue reforms of party funding so that power in this country lies with the voters and not wealthy overseas oligarchs?
I think we all had a smile on Sunday when the honourable member said how cool it was to have the support of Musk, only for Musk to say he should be removed. Just a few hours later, that's the rough and tough of politics. And of course, we're looking at the question of funding more generally.
Starmer likes Farage.
Yeah, I got that.
Did you see just before Christmas? Actually, you might have been on.
Are you about to
Paternity.
talk when he crossed the chamber
Yeah.
to go and talk to him? Yeah. and actually had to wait behind David Davis. Yeah.
Queue.
You had to wait in line.
You absolute dork. You weren't meant to be looking at.
I think it was just
He
before
loves
I went
it.
off. Yeah.
Before we get into the substance, do you know what I think is really undignified?
What?
When MPs sit on the stairs.
Yeah.
See, if I was an MP and there wasn't room, stand at the side. You look like an idiot.
Oh,
Like sitting
why?
there.
There's not enough space for them though.
You look like a primary school child.
Oh, I love it.
No.
I'd like
Not for me.
cross your legs. Yeah. Sit
Fingers
the
on
floor.
lips.
Yeah. Sit on the floor. Yeah.
It is very school-like, though, isn't it? Parliament.
Yeah, but that's the problem. They're all
Well,
private school
actually,
children.
I told.
Worst behaved.
There's like there's these bathrooms that are like by the lobby offices, and they're like really old and like proper like masonry, like it's really beautiful or whatever. And I just remember this guy being like, "Doesn't it remind you of school?" And I'm like, "No." Like, what fucking school did you go to?
Well, yeah.
Like,
Take a guess.
That's great.
Okay. Just on the Starmer chit-chatting with Farage, I think Nigel Farage has better connections to the incoming American government than anybody else in that room. I think he has a personal relationship with Donald Trump. I think he has a personal relationship with people that are going to be in Donald Trump's cabinet. And anyone else in that room who could claim to have a decent relationship with the Trump administration it's on a professional level, it's on a business level, right? The Foreign Secretary obviously has a connection to the American government, ministers, etc. But Nigel and Trump are friends on a personal basis, and they both value loyalty. And pre-2016, when Nigel was essentially one of the only main public political figures supporting Trump, Trump has not forgotten that. And obviously, when you're president, you don't have as much time to glad hand with Nigel. But they remain in touch with each other. And I understand from a complete, I'm not saying this is what it was, but just from a complete sort of maintaining comms with the Americans, I expect that's what Starmer was doing with Nigel.
I can imagine Peter Mandelson, though, having a good relationship with Trump. I cannot imagine Peter Mandelson having a good relationship with J.D. Vance. They're just totally different political operators.
They should go hunting or something.
It would be like having, like, can you imagine Peter Mandelson going on, like, Joe Rogan? Do you know what I mean? Or what was that other podcast? What was the podcast with the 4 men that Trump went on?
The 4 men?
Oh,
Milk?
Andrew Schultz.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, can you imagine him on that?
No.
I'd like to see.
Because that's the kind of, like, Vance sort of ecosystem, right? Is
Yeah.
all of those sort of, like...
How do we become comms for the British Embassy in Washington and then get Mandelson onto all these things? Mandelson and Shane Gillis hanging out, talking about college football.
I don't think he's allowed to be in his position as ambassador, is he?
On a podcast?
I'm not sure if he is.
Must be.
I'd advocate for it pretty strongly. Him and the Nelk boys.
Yeah. Hanging out, shooting the shit. Logan Paul.
Peter Mandelson on Call Her Daddy. But in its like original conception, you know, when she just used to talk about sex all the time.
Yep.
Mandelson on Z-Way.
And Peter's like, well, so what had happened with John Major was, and Edwina
Just
Curry.
gossip. It's just good gossip.
Yeah, it was the eggs.
Should a foreign billionaire be able to funnel $100 million into a British political party?
I'd say probably not.
Think it's bad?
I think, yeah, in the abstract, it's pretty not.
Let's
not
be
good.
specific.
Okay, I don't think it's good.
Yeah.
No, I think it's.
Why, do you hate foreigners? Is that what this is now?
Yeah, I'm a xenophobe.
I didn't realise
I'm
that
sorry,
we were
I
the-
hate stupid gay foreigners.
Oh, so you want immigration, do you? But you don't want foreign money.
Yeah. A long time ago, in that it was last year, we had a guy called Daniel Chandler in to talk about his book Free and Equal, which is probably somewhere on the bookshelf behind us.
We've got to move that Naomi Klein back.
Yeah.
I like it.
Doppelganger. I'll keep talking whilst you look for it. And he talks about several things, but he's kind of an up-and-coming thinker and sits sort of in between liberalism and socialism. And he was talking about campaign and political party finance, and he was talking about an idea called democracy vouchers, where every citizen in the UK gets a voucher and can allocate it to whichever political party they like. So let's say it's a £5. So I could give mine to Keir Starmer's Labour Party, you could give yours to the Tories, and you could give yours to Reform. And that is how the funding for the political parties. I don't support the Labour Party.
You are mobilising the far right who listen to this podcast.
There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them. And the state then funds the political parties according to the allocation of vouchers that the public has given them. So there's always going to be a ceiling on how much money they could ever receive. But it's not sort of everybody gets £5 million or whatever. It's allocated by the population, and he advocates for that as a fairer, more democratic mechanism for funding political parties.
I think that sucks.
Do you?
Yeah, I think that is absolutely dreadful.
Why?
Because you already have a choice in what political party. You already have agency. You can go and vote. Giving a £5 to each person, then you won't be able to retract that £5 either.
Yeah,
In
but
the same way you can't retract your vote.
Obviously, you can. It's just a way of changing financing and equalising so that no individual citizen can exert more influence over a political party than another.
We've seen already how this week we're all dancing to the tune of Elon Musk's wonderful violin. So imagine like Reform, we're just beholden to him now. Like this $100 million comes with all these strings attached, and then they're welcoming Tommy Robinson into the fold.
Can I just tell you why that idea sucks?
Sure.
All right, so firstly, it would be terrible for smaller parties because the majority of people would give it to the party that they know. It would be impossible then as an independent candidate to break through in certain constituencies. It would also be... that sucks because how would you even... Okay, all right, so say we're starting at a base level and say there's 4 parties, hypothetically, and we don't know what any of them stand for. They're going to have to spend some money to tell people what they stand for in order to bid for your £5 in the first place, to bid for your cash. So it's cyclical, right? That is a dreadful idea.
I strongly disagree.
If anything, that's just going to... That would just entrench the two-party system because people would go, oh, we'll give it to them.
No, because for those smaller parties who are never going to get a billionaire donating £100 million to them, it levels the playing field because it stops the bigger parties from monopolising.
No, but how would they get their message out in the first place to be like, hey, we're here, we are here?
They do that. That's what they have to do.
No,
If you're a
local
well-entrenched local
money
candidate,
to do that in the first
Corbyn could do that. Could do a lot with that in Islington North.
You go around, you knock on doors, you say, do you like our platform?
Yeah, but you've got to have money to do that because you have to pay for the leaflets, and leaflets are extremely expensive. Do you know that's what one of the main things that political parties spend their money on is leafleting?
Yeah.
So, David, do you know what? That's nice in Utopia.
I don't think it's utopian at all.
I think it's farcical. It would be impossible. You would never have a breakthrough.
I haven't seen you talk about something so passionately.
I think she thinks it sucks.
It's stupid. You would never ever have.
It's not stupid, Ava.
You'd never have a breakthrough small party ever again.
That's remotely true.
All right,
not true at all.
If a breakthrough small party, they'd have to secure funding from someone, thereby negating your entire argument that certain parties shouldn't be allowed to take private donations. They'd have to take a private donation from somewhere in order to get started, to get your public donation.
I don't think that's true because they're not starting from a standing start. They're not abolishing funding. They're not getting rid of all the coffers that they already have.
But then there's no point in doing it.
No, because then you enable people who don't donate to political parties, but they've suddenly got an extra £5 to be like, and this is specifically to it empowers people to donate money to these parties, to your local candidate who you
But they wouldn't
might
even
care
know about local candidates because the local candidate has to canvass and he can't canvass without any money.
He can, can't he?
Of course
It's a
you can.
nonsensical answer. Do you know what it is? Diagnosis correct, solution stupid.
I don't understand. I don't know why you feel so passionately about this.
This is mad.
This is
wild.
insane. Why do you feel so passionately about
Because
this?
it's just stupid.
What?
No
Campaign
one-
finance reform? Stupid.
No, do you know what it is?
Idiots.
No one on the left ever comes up with a good fucking solution. It's so
What's
frustrating.
wrong with that?
The Greens wouldn't get anything.
That's not true.
It's not true.
Well, okay, all right, so let's say 10 years ago, the Greens would have never gotten anything.
I mean, they could have done, couldn't they?
They need a private donation to
No, they
get their
wouldn't.
word out.
It doesn't cost you anything to walk around your local area knocking on people's doors, telling them about your political party.
It does, because that person would have to be not in a job in order to have the time
They
to
could do
go
it
and
the
do
weekend.
that. And you've got to pay them.
Parties have volunteers already.
Do you know what? The left, you lot need to come up with some better ideas. It sucks.
She is getting right wing.
Yeah, she is.
I'm not getting right wing. I'm saying, for God's sake.
I'm
This is
just
why
saying,
the left never win
billionaires can do what they want
election.
and funnel money into this country and make it better.
Oh, I want to give everyone a £5 voucher and they can donate it. Like, shut up. You'd never have an independent candidate again.
It's literally, it would facilitate the complete opposite.
How would the public know about the independent candidate?
How do people know anything?
Because they spend...
Google! I'm interested in voting in the local election. Who are the candidates?
No, you're actually being
Nothing.
silly. All right. Tomorrow, hypothetically, I decide I want to go and set up a new party, and it's called Reborn.
God, how would someone with
Can I
your
just-
profile get the word out there? That is baffling.
All right, okay, tomorrow, you want to go... All right, so hypothetically, the man who should not be named who works on this podcast, he decides he wants to go and set up a political party tomorrow,
Yeah.
right? How he then has to quit work because he goes, I've got to start canvassing, I've got to start knocking on doors. He needs a wage because otherwise he can't live.
Yeah, and that could be provided for him by the state.
They wouldn't know about him.
Yes, they would. Oh my god. It's like the 2008 election never happened.
They wouldn't know he existed. Why would I give my money to the man who should not be named? He doesn't even have a
But
name.
you understand?
Do you know who Ahmed Yacoub is?
Who?
Oh, okay, maybe point proven maybe.
What did you say?
Do you know Ahmed Yacoub?
No.
He ran against.
He's not
was it
getting
Jeff
my fiver.
Phillips?
Yeah.
He was an independent candidate who went super viral during the general election using the power of social media.
Okay, and do you know what I'm going to say to you, Ed? You need to spend money on social media in order to promote your posts or to have the time to continuously
Or make
post
good
on
content
social
that goes
media.
viral. We don't put any
Okay,
spend on
and
our
how do you make that?
stuff.
How do you make that content? You have to pay for the camera, you have to pay for the editor, you have to pay for the time
pay for
to make
camera.
it.
It's one in your pocket, pal.
Okay, who's paying for the phone? He would
The
need
UBI.
I think
he would need 200 people to give them their £5 vouchers, but they don't even know him in order to buy a phone.
I think you make it fairer for independent candidates if you prevent the big parties from receiving donations from billionaires.
You don't know who the independents are.
But that is politics. That's like, we're going to start a political party.
You need cash.
Okay.
And I'm not taking this free cash.
Right. Shall we just move
No,
on?
I agree. Actually, be quite good. Yeah. I'm joking. I don't.
Speaking of
Absolute shite. That.
cash to people, next clip.
Mr. Speaker, first of all, we had a Chancellor who embellished her CV, then we had a Transport Secretary with a fraud conviction, and now we've got an anti-corruption minister who's being investigated for corruption. Now, I know the Prime Minister likes living in free accommodation, but does he really think it's appropriate that his minister is being given free housing by the political allies of some very dubious foreign regimes?
Prime Minister.
Gregory Stafford looks like a background member of the cast of Peep Show
Whoa.
who works in JLB credit. Like
What
him
an
and Jeff.
insensitive thing to say.
Him and Jeff at the water cooler. Him and Alan getting out of a lift.
That's the worst thing I've ever heard from out of your mouth.
4 nans in his pocket.
Yeah.
I think
That's
being,
insane.
being compared to anyone from Peep Show is just would be awful. There's not a redeeming feature in any of the characters.
Big Mad Andy.
Big Mad. He's got severe mental health issues.
Yeah.
I could be. What's
cheap
his name's
and
pet
nasty.
snake?
Huh?
I wouldn't mind being what's his name's pet snake. What's
Superhands.
Superhands' pet snake. Have I ever told you about the real life Superhands and how he thought my friend was stalking him?
Matt King.
It's really funny.
He still does DJ sets, I think.
Yeah, and he lives in Brighton. And like, for some really bizarre reason, my friend ended up behind him 3 times over the space of a week in like supermarket queues. Like, it was once a shop in the lanes, then it was the big Asda, and then it was a small local Sainsbury's. And it was genuinely completely coincidental. The final one was the Asda, and it was actually on the opposite, what's it called? Checkout.
Check out.
And he told her to leave him alone. And she wasn't doing it intentionally.
I've accidentally stalked Superhands, yeah.
It's really funny.
That seems like a Peep Show storyline.
That'd be quite a good storyline, though, wouldn't it? That would be quite Brecht, wouldn't it? Because you'd have to break the fourth wall, because you'd have to acknowledge that Superhands is a character.
I think Superhands is more a state of mind.
Much like allegations of corruption in Bangladesh.
I feel like the allegations are more concrete than being a state of mind, in that they exist in the real world.
Well, the MP involved says there's no wrongdoing, and the Prime Minister retains full faith in her.
She's not getting my £5.
Should we give her statement? A spokesperson for Sadiq said no evidence has been presented for these allegations. Tulip has not been contacted by anyone on the matter and totally refutes the claims. What's this all about? Ava, what's going on?
Sorry, I just got really distracted by something. So
Should I ask Ed?
last month there was
Just
an
texting on the board.
investigation about, well, relatives of Tulip Sadiq who had embezzled, allegedly, infrastructure spending of like £3.9 billion. Do you want to go to Ed?
No. Oh, okay.
MP, Labour MP, Minister, Anti-Corruption Minister, Tulip Sadiq, her aunt was the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, who's recently been ousted, and one of the allegations is that she has embezzled billions of pounds from a deal with Russia over a nuclear power plant in Bangladesh.
Do you ever feel like the level of corruption in the UK is just pitiful? Like the second you go international, and it's like, yeah, they embezzled billions of pounds, and we're losing it over like a Sandro hoodie that Keir Starmer was given by someone.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's not belittle that.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
I was going to say,
£2,000 worth of
no.
glasses.
In that vein, you're right, because it's like when we had like a 4-week row over the fact that Boris Johnson got new wallpaper, which we rightly did have that row, but when you compare it to this, can you imagine other countries reading that
Billions of
going,
pounds.
so he just redecorated, yeah? He just freshened the place up a bit, did he?
He made it nicer. Okay.
The Prime Minister of the country, I'm really sorry, just let me get this clear. And this is not Venezuela, just to be clear. He just tidied up
Did you see
the walls.
the thing over Christmas about Starmer skipping the queue to go on that log flume?
Yeah, good.
No.
Oh no! So like he was on holiday in Madeira, and the local police escorted him to him and his family to the front because I think they were like, no, they were like, this
No, that is high. That is corruption of the highest level. Sorry.
it's actually the same as this.
Utilising the local law enforcement to queue jump at the water park on holiday.
But
Do you
people on
think
Twitter
there's an
pointed out that his brother had just died.
But do you think
Maybe he wanted to ride the log flume to forget about it.
Yeah.
Escapist log flume riding.
What is it good having a prime minister standing in an open space in a tightly confined queue?
No, obviously not.
Yeah. So that's my point.
He
Like,
didn't
but
have
that's
to
my
go on the
point.
log
Okay,
flume,
we agree.
did he?
Good.
Yeah.
He didn't have to go on the log flume.
I think you have to go on the log
You
flume.
have to go. You see that log flume. Do you know what? This is apropos of nothing. I went on a chairplane over Christmas at a winter market.
A
Chairplane?
what?
Is that what they're called?
I don't know.
You know the swings?
What?
That's the first time I've ever heard anyone say the word
I
chairplane
might have made it up. You know, like the swings at a fun fair.
that go really high.
Yeah, and like go like that.
Yeah, you went on one of those.
Yeah, it didn't go that high.
You are clapped.
It was, but like it made me feel sick and I've never felt sick on a theme park ride before. So I think I'm getting old now.
I'm getting
They
old.
do make me. They've always made me sick.
Have you not
I've
seen the
not feel
video
sick.
of the? I think it's in Cardiff. The one in Cardiff.
And the
where
one,
they all
one
got-
goes flying off.
Yeah.
There was rides I didn't go on. There was one that was, so imagine it's like literally this shape and there's chairs down here, chairs up there.
There
and it
are
goes
people
like,
that just listen to this, so you have to be a bit
I'm
more
holding up,
descriptive.
it's like a pen. I'm holding up a pen,
The
listeners.
chair at the top of his pen and a chair at the bottom of his pen.
Oh,
and
that
he's now
spins round.
spinning.
It's like, and I was like, why would you ever do it? It's not a permanent structure.
Yeah,
this thing moves.
It's on the back of a lorry.
This
yeah.
is hell.
But I like anything that's like fast and like, so like I like things that, you know, when you go to like the top and it drops you.
Yeah.
But that's like a real jeopardy in a fun fair, because how are you certain that they've got a real good catch at the bottom to make sure you don't smash
in
into the
these
floor?
mobile ones, I'm never convinced.
For
I
me-
like Thorpe Park. I think that's fine.
What, you say that, but what happened to Alton Towers?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
the Smiler changed everything for me.
Mm.
Because before that, it was just this is fun.
freewheeling.
Yeah, I pay you my money and you create a mechanical contraption that is safe, that will catapult me through the air at death-defying speeds. The second it's no longer safe, I want no truck with this.
Yeah.
I want nothing to do with it. And, I'm conscious that I'm now in my 30s, as you like to remind me, and I'm now a father, and Ollie's boring, blah, blah, blah. He's got a mullet because he's trying to be Gen Z. I fucking read your comments. I'm not getting on a fucking theme park ride.
Ever.
I don't care. I don't care.
You like your legs.
I wear
You don't wanna lose
fleeces
them.
now. I like going home and eating my dinner and going to bed before 10 o'clock. Sorry.
That does sound good, to be honest.
We were at Chessington when I was a kid, and it was a ride called Dragon's Fury, and a piece of the track fell off.
Whoa.
And we didn't go home.
That's can't happen twice.
Just thinking about that. My parents being like, "Oh no, pal, we paid for the day."
There's a theme park. There was a theme park was it like Ayrshire, called Loudon Castle, and someone died because on the roller coaster, the stairs that go up beside the roller coaster, as it's going like someone who worked at the park climbed up alongside the carts and decided to try and jump in.
Why?
And now Loudon Castle doesn't exist anymore.
There was a theme park in Wales, Oakwood, and on the log flume, there was a little boy who fell out.
Ooh.
I tell you what, though, I have been on Shambhala, which is a ride in Portaventura in Spain, which I can't remember. I believe was the highest roller coaster in Europe.
Really?
Yeah,
That sounds
and
good.
there's no harness. It's just a mushroom that sits over your legs.
Oh, well, why? Well, that seems fine, doesn't it?
Well, I'm still here.
What holds you in? Is it like the
mushroom.
G-force?
The mushroom.
But it's also like the force of
Yeah, kind of. It constricts your legs, but there's nothing over here. There's nothing to hold on. You hold on to the mushroom.
Do you
It has
go
two little
upside down
handles
or
on it.
anything?
I think there was a corkscrew or two, yeah.
With just a mushroom?
Yeah,
They're doing it different over in Europe, aren't they?
they certainly are.
Do you know what must be a thrill? Living in a flat owned by your aunt's political allies.
Well, allegedly.
I think that's true.
Who knows?
I appreciate your segue.
Uh-huh.
Should we do another clip?
Segue offered?
Yeah, I think rejected. I think we do.
It's like in chess.
I think we do.
Segue gambit offered?
Declined.
Declined.
I think we do another clip. Should we close out?
I think we talked about this.
Yeah, we probably have. I mean, you mentioned it earlier, so well, let's just listen to it, and then if there are any additional remarks, we can offer them, and if not, we can retire.
We can
Loggers
reject that
Leap at
gambit.
Thorpe Park, they shut that down as well.
Did they?
Roll the clip.
To Roger Gale.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, setting aside the matter of grooming gangs, the opposition amendment on the order paper today sets out very clearly why the bill that we shall be debating is so very deeply flawed. And if it is to become an act of Parliament, it will have to be completely rewritten in committee. But, Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister from that dispatch box has made much of his service as the public prosecutor. So could he tell the House in that capacity why during his time he declined to instigate a prosecution for rape and sexual abuse against Mohammed Fayed?
Prime Minister.
That case never crossed my desk.
Right.
Oblivion for me is probably the greatest roller coaster ever constructed in
You're an
Great
idiot.
Britain.
You're a fucking
Where is
idiot.
Oblivion?
Alton Towers.
Alton Towers.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was there when I went.
It's their high one. I also liked Air. Do you go on
That
Air?
was
Where is Alton
amazing.
Towers?
Revolutionary. Is it kind of in the home counties?
I want to say
Northern
it's
home
like a bit
counties?
north of like Oxford, is it?
I went as a
Yeah,
child, and
I
that
would
seems
say
really
that.
far to go.
From Scotland, I would
Yeah.
say so.
Yeah.
Particularly when what was it called in Air?
Loudon Castle.
You could have
but,
gone
but
there.
Loudon Castle was a much smaller theme park than Alton Towers. It's barely a day-long thing.
There you go.
Stoke-on-Trent.
Well, it's
Where
north
is
of
Stoke-on-Trent? What were my parents thinking? You know, my friend who grew up in Belfast, they used to organise like school trips to Loudon Castle. They used to get the ferry across to go to the theme park in Ayrshire. If only it's just a few hours more drive, they could go to Stoke-on-Trent.
to Alton Towers.
Mm-hmm.
Air was great. The Smiler, we didn't go on that. I don't think that existed. when
No,
I
that was
there.
relatively new.
What was the one at Thorpe Park that's really fast? It's like 7 seconds.
Oh, stealth.
Stealth's good.
That's a great time. That.
The only time I've been to Thorpe Park was in 2020 on the bank holiday Monday in August, and it was absolute hell. We queued for about 2.5 hours for every ride.
Yeah, that's not
and it
great,
was
no.
like peak COVID panic.
You want to kind of go on like a school day, don't you? Oh, we rolled back on stealth actually.
Did you?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Which is
Apparently
like,
the Smiler is still operational.
yeah, they brought it back.
How many legs can it take?
But I can imagine at the time when we rolled back, I was like, this is the best thing to ever happen to me in my life. I can't believe how lucky we are that like this machine
the one in
has
a
failed.
1,000 chance.
And then like now, if that happened, seppuku.
Yeah. I just think there are better ways to spend a weekend.
Then at a theme park.
Doing literally anything else.
Anything.
Anything.
Oh, I wouldn't mind
What
going to
about-
a theme park, you know.
Putting knitting needles into your eyes.
Well, no. I don't think that would be better.
Suggestion rejected.
Detonator, that's the one I liked.
Right.
It like takes you and it drops you. Do you like them?
That's Oblivion. Yeah, it's
Is it?
similar. It's like you climb and climb and climb, and then it's just a vertical drop down into a pit. And that's the ride, basically.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing what they've been able to do with technology, isn't it?
I've been skydiving, you know.
So bad.
Have you?
Yeah.
Where did you do it?
Oxfordshire.
Very nice.
It was.
Mm.
Yeah. Could see Bristol.
Could see Bristol.
Yeah.
That's
Could you see Alton Towers?
far.
Probably. But I did not look upon it.
What was
I did not cast my gaze in its direction.
What height did you do it from?
I was like 16, mate. I can't remember. 14,000 feet. Does that sound right?
Maybe. I don't know.
Why did you ask?
In my, I was like, could be.
It was
10.
it was tandem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'd know if you're a qualified skyddiver.
I wasn't responsible for like what height are we at. No,
that's a pilot's job, if anything.
I hung out the side of the plane.
Have you seen the Jackass thing of the guy jumping out of a
Without
plane
a
without a
parachute,
parachute?
yeah.
And he attaches himself to someone like in the air.
Oh, for God's
It's great.
sake.
Jackass was good.
My dad used to love that.
I was more of a
still love it.
Dirty Sanchez guy.
Wasn't really into Dirty Sanchez.
Is that the same as the Grandpa film?
That is Johnny Knoxville, who was in Jackass. Bad Grandpa, I think you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, I felt like Jackass had limitations, but once you've watched, whether it's Pritchard or one of the other ones, that drink another guy's liposuction, you're
That is
really-
one. I've seen that actually. That is one of the worst things. Because and they get and they find who's
Stapling.
doing it is because there's someone giving one of them head under the table.
Yeah.
Tell you what, people say bad things about woke. I think it's good that you can't do that anymore.
I might watch that. Is it really that bad?
Yeah.
Wow.
They'd be like stapling their ball sacks to things. It was like, yeah. Yeah.
Do you know who'd like that? Megara Fury, friend of the
Wonder what
podcast.
she's up to these days.
Well, she's probably doing that right now.
She's probably listening to this at work.
Yeah.
Get him!
What about
Kick
that
his head
girl
in.
whose both parachutes failed? The
What?
guy
Oh, is
and
this
she.
the Guardian first experience thing?
So she jumped. They jumped out the plane with one of your, with the guy on the back,
One of
you
your
did.
mates?
One of your mates.
One of your mob.
And the guy pulled the parachute at the exact moment. All right.
I was falling backwards there.
At the
Flashbacks.
exact moment that the emergency parachute was going to come out, and so they got tangled,
Oh dear.
and they just fell to the floor, and she lived. She was on the bottom, and she woke up, and he was on her back.
Dead.
Was he dead? I don't know.
I assume that's where the story was
Presumably.
going to go.
I don't know. And then she woke up and was just like, obviously, like she couldn't even. She's like, I can't even describe the pain. The pain was just like, there's not a word for the pain. And she like crawled.
There was a guy, similar thing. I can't remember why his parachute didn't open, but he fell. I think it was into like brambles.
Sorry, it's just, if it wasn't bad enough.
No, but
Insult to injury.
no,
He fell through a thorn bush and then into a big vat of lemon juice.
Oh,
And he had a paper cut.
no, but they cushioned his fall and he survived.
Or do you find the idea
I don't think
more
I'd want that. I don't think I'd want a cushion of knives.
a bed of nails?
The knives really slowed my fall.
Yeah.
Do you feel more nervous about the idea of having done a skydive, having done one? Excuse me. Do you feel more nervous about the idea of doing a skydive, having done one? Because the thought of it now makes my palms sweat after the fact.
Probably one of the most terrifying things most terrified I've ever felt. Yeah.
Yeah.
Being in the plane on the way up.
Yeah.
It's so difficult, isn't it? Because I'd love to do it, and I'd also love to do that thing you can do in Wales where you like jump down like a gorge thing or whatever.
Oh, what, the zip line?
Oh.
Yeah, but the problem is that if it were to go wrong
So badly
Bad.
wrong.
and you didn't die,
Yeah.
it would be so bad.
Yeah.
Death is the best outcome.
Well, that brings us nicely,
know?
actually, to our hour-long debate about euthanasia in this country.
Okay. If you discovered me at the bottom of the quarry, having had a horrific ziplining accident.
Ollie! I came from London!
No, it's not like
Down the
that.
zip wire.
No, you.
Ollie refuses every ambulance or piece of medical help.
Get me
because
out!
you're on the 4-hour drive from London.
No. So you guys are on like a long weekend and you're having a hike
Right.
and you just come across me
I wonder what's at the bottom of this quarry.
mangled in severe pain.
Right.
Would you put me out of my misery?
No.
I'd put a microphone to you.
Content.
The subreddit will love this.
It's like Midsummer, you know, when they jump off the
Oh,
cliff
yeah.
and the guy doesn't die. Have you seen it?
No. Sounds good though.
It is. And shall I tell you what happens?
Please.
So that, like, as part of a ritual, they jump off this cliff thing. Yeah, the first one, it's so graphic. You see
Really?
all of their faces smashed in. And then the guy doesn't die, so they go over with this, like, huge mallet, comically large mallet, actually, but I don't think it's meant to be
It's
a
like
comedy
Looney
moment. And they hit him on the face twice until he's dead.
And he goes flat like a pancake.
He does go flat like a pancake.
That's
Horrific.
are they friends?
They're in a cult.
Right.
Are they friends about Midsummer? It's really funny.
No, well, it doesn't seem
Death
like
cult.
the behaviour of a
Are they
friend.
friends? I'd be hanging out with different people, actually, if they
Yeah.
attacked me with mallets.
I watched it on my own because I thought it was more like a psychological thriller. I didn't realise it had, like, horror in it.
How did they fall in with these characters?
Oh,
One
that's
of
the bit that's a bit loose about the storyline. It doesn't quite add up.
Is one of them not doing a study about the
Yeah.
the cult?
It's like a friend of a friend,
That's
and
a
they go
rookie
there.
move.
Yeah, don't study the cult.
Don't
Leave
study
the cult alone.
Yeah, don't study the death cult.
This group of boys, they're joining their friend in Sweden because they're doing a PhD and they're going to, like, look at this. But they don't know how bad the cult is. They don't know there's going to be deaths. But anyway, what's her name? Florence Pugh ends up going along because, and this is the bit where it's like a bit over dramatic because her sister has killed herself and also killed her parents.
Right.
And so they're like, well, since that happened, we didn't want you to come to Sweden before, but we should probably let you
To cheer you up.
to cheer you up.
We're going to let you come to the cult. We're not going to go to Lanzarote for a beach holiday. You're going to engage in some anthropological research for my PhD. Some friend. Fuck that.
She was filming around here the other day.
Really?
Yeah, she's in the coffee shop. Yeah.
Did you
Do
see
mean Emilia
her?
Clarke?
Yes, I do. I do mean Amelia. I do mean Amelia Clarke.
I saw Olivia Colman around here the other day.
You sure you don't mean Amelia Clarke?
No, I definitely mean Olivia Colman.
What are they? They're always filming stuff
Olivia
around
Colman
here.
was just having lunch. It wasn't.
Where
they weren't
was she?
filming something.
Was she at Quality Wines?
No, it was Caravan.
Having
We're
lunch in,
doxing Olivia Colman.
having
No.
lunch in Caravan. Yeah,
She's above that.
yeah. They'll go and.
We're not doxing.
I'm sorry, Olivia Colman is above having lunch in Caravan.
I like Caravan. Who's this?
We're talking
Yeah.
absolute shite. Come in,
Who is it?
It's Joel.
Does Joel want to come on the podcast?
Joel. Did you know that Olivia Colman had lunch at Caravan the other day?
I think that's probably a sign we should wrap this up.
Yeah.
Ed, closing remarks?
I wanted to talk about A Little Life there because I don't know if I've done that publicly.
No, we don't have time for
Don't have
that.
time?
No.
Okay, another time.
Ava?
What's a little life?
You know that book that everyone likes? It's like this big, and it's like trauma porn about gay men in fake New York City.
Oh yeah.
It's
Why did you want to talk about that?
because we were talking about.
What's that got to do with Olivia Colman?
It's talking about that Florence Pugh film, and about like, it was. What made me think of it was. You talking about Florence Pugh's character's sister killing her parents, and that's like tragedy on tragedy, and that's basically A Little Life is like, worst thing that happens to this guy, then the worst thing, then the worst thing, then the worst thing. It's just too much. I would say. I have more things to say.
Like
but I
by the
think we
law
should
of
wrap it up.
averages, you go. Surely this many bad things.
By the
can't
law of
happen to one
averages,
person.
not every man you meet should be an opportunistic rapist.
Thank you for that insight, Ed.
Yeah.
And on that bombshell, we'll finish the podcast.
And we'll come back to that thought. All that thought, listeners. We'll be back on Monday.
Yeah, film Thursday, so we'll be there.
Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you on the next one.
Bye-bye.